The deeper you awaken, the smaller your circle becomes. Not because you're better, but because you're no longer blind. Most people bond through illusion, gossip, distraction, and shared misery. They connect through noise, not truth. But when your awareness expands, that noise becomes unbearable. You begin to crave silence, depth, and energy that feels real. You start noticing how many conversations are hollow, how many smiles are masks, and how few people actually see you. Not the version they project, but you. Awakening strips away everything false, including friendships built on convenience and comfort. It's not that you lose friends, it's that truth filters them out. The more awake you become, the less company you need, and the more peace you find in your own presence. This is why spiritually awake people don't have many friends, because real connection requires truth. And truth is the rarest language of all. Subscribe to join the Guru Clan, a brotherhood of awakened minds choosing truth over comfort, clarity over conformity, and solitude over fake connection. Your awakening isn't loneliness, it's alignment. And only those who see will understand. 1. The awake no longer tolerate surface-level bonds. Awakening changes the way you see people. It's not something you decide, it just happens. One day, the conversations that once entertained you start to feel empty. The laughter that used to connect you begins to sound hollow. You notice how most relationships are built on habit, not truth. People talk, but they don't connect. They share time, but not energy. They stay close, not because of depth, but because of comfort. Before awakening, you tolerated it. You played along, the small talk, the gossip, the endless cycles of pretending everything was fine. You learned how to keep conversations light, how to smile at things that didn't matter, how to fit in by hiding your depth. But once awareness rises, you can't go back. You can't unsee how shallow most of it is. You can't force yourself to care about meaningless things just to belong. You start craving authenticity like oxygen. You want conversations that feed your soul, not your ego. You want to sit in silence with people who understand, rather than shout over noise just to be heard. You start valuing presence over performance, energy that feels real over words that sound right. And that's when people begin to fade. Not because you push them away, but because you stop meeting them at the level of illusion. You stop playing the old emotional games. You no longer feed on drama or join in complaining about life. You stop pretending to agree just to avoid conflict. You begin to speak truth, quietly, directly, without agenda. And truth has a way of clearing rooms. It's uncomfortable for them. They can feel that you've changed. You're calmer now, but also sharper. You don't gossip, you don't compete, you don't seek validation. You're no longer emotionally available for chaos. And for those still living unconsciously, that feels like rejection. They say you've become distant, cold, or different. But you haven't become distant, you've become clear. Clarity doesn't tolerate confusion. Depth doesn't tolerate pretense. When your awareness rises, you stop tolerating anything that drains it. The awake see what others ignore. The subtle tension behind fake laughter, the emptiness behind constant distraction, the way people hide their fear behind confidence. You feel it all. And the more you sense it, the harder it becomes to pretend you don't. So you withdraw, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. You spend more time alone, not because you dislike people, but because you need space to breathe truth. Silence becomes sacred. Solitude becomes medicine. You stop fearing being alone because you've discovered that loneliness doesn't come from the absence of people. It comes from the absence of connection. Awakening exposes how many relationships are built on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being judged, fear of being unseen. Once you're awake, you can't build from fear anymore. You can only build from truth. And truth doesn't multiply quickly, it deepens slowly. The few who remain after this transformation are rare. They understand your silence. They don't need you to perform. They don't require constant reassurance. They meet you in presence, not in distraction. With them, conversation becomes communion, not exchange of words, but of awareness. That's the paradox of awakening. The higher your consciousness, the smaller your circle, but the deeper your connections. You trade quantity for quality, noise for resonance, attention for alignment. You no longer crave to be understood by many. You crave to be real with a few. And that shift threatens everything built on superficiality. Society thrives on shallow bonds because shallow people are easy to influence. The awakened are difficult to control. They don't need external validation, entertainment, or endless company. Their fulfillment comes from alignment, not approval. So yes, awakening costs you friends, but it also grants you peace. It replaces shallow chatter with silence that heals. It replaces conditional affection with presence that uplifts. It teaches you that not everyone can walk your path, and that's okay. The path of truth is narrow for a reason. When you awaken, you no longer seek to fill the space around you. You seek to fill the space within you. And when you finally do, the few who remain will feel like home. Because real connection is not found in the crowd. It's found in consciousness. 2. Your energy exposes what others want to hide. When you awaken, you start to carry a different frequency, one that can't be fake or hidden. It's not about words or actions anymore, it's energy. You can walk into a room and feel everything: tension, insecurity, envy, fear, deceit, all the emotions people bury beneath smiles and small talk. And at the same time, people feel you. They can't explain it, but they sense something different, something raw, something real. The awakened radiate truth, not because they try to, but because they no longer pretend. Their presence reveals what's hidden in others, and that's uncomfortable for those still living in illusion. Your energy becomes a mirror, reflecting people's shadows back at them. Suddenly, your silence feels like judgment, your calm feels like arrogance, and your clarity feels like confrontation. But it's not confrontation, it's reflection. You're simply being, and your being exposes everything false. Most people spend their lives constructing masks, identities built on stories, roles, and emotional defense mechanisms. They perform these versions of themselves to be accepted, validated, and loved. But when they stand in front of someone awakened, those masks start to crack. The energy of truth vibrates too high for illusion to remain intact. It forces them to either rise or retreat. And most retreat. That's why you start to notice people acting differently around you. Some grow defensive without reason. Some distance themselves suddenly. Some criticize you behind your back, trying to frame your peace as pride. What they're really doing is avoiding the discomfort of self-awareness. You've become a living trigger, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your clarity threatens the comfort of their denial. Awakening doesn't make you superior, it makes you transparent. You stop hiding your intentions, your emotions, your truth. And transparency is terrifying to those still hiding behind performance. Your presence silently exposes the difference between who they are and who they pretend to be. You begin to realize how rare authenticity truly is. People say they want honesty, but they crave comfort. They say they want truth, but they cling to illusion. They'll say you've changed, but what they really mean is you no longer play my game. Your energy doesn't entertain drama. It doesn't feed gossip, pity, or manipulation. It doesn't need validation or attention to feel alive. And that unnerves those who depend on emotional chaos to feel significant. The awakened often walk alone, not because they reject others, but because their frequency repels everything unaligned. They no longer resonate with noise, victimhood, or emotional dependency. They're not interested in pretending or proving, only in being. And in a world addicted to masks, authenticity becomes rebellion. Your energy starts creating silent boundaries. You no longer have to say no out loud. Your vibration says it for you. You no longer have to explain yourself. Your peace makes explanations unnecessary. People who match your frequency will feel seen and safe in your presence. Those who don't will feel exposed and uncomfortable. It's energetic law. This is the unseen cost of awakening, losing connection with those who still live in shadows. You can't dim yourself to make them comfortable anymore. You can't shrink your awareness to fit into rooms built on denial. The more you evolve, the less you resonate with fear, ego, and pretense, and that naturally filters your surroundings. But in that filtering, something beautiful happens. You start attracting truth, people who meet you with honesty, conversations that elevate, connections that require no mask. The few who remain aren't intimidated by your light, they're illuminated by it. The awakened learn that exposure isn't rejection, it's purification. Your energy doesn't push people away. It reveals who's willing to rise with you. Some will vanish. Others will evolve. Either way, the truth stands untouched, unshaken, undeniable. You realize that being different was never a curse. It was your calling. You weren't meant to blend in with the unconscious. You were meant to awaken the conscious. And awakening always begins with exposure, light touching what was once hidden. So when people call you distant, strange, or too intense, remember this: it's not your fault they can't face their own reflection. The light that blinds them is the same light that freed you, and you were never meant to dim it. 3. You stop chasing validation. Before awakening, your worth was built on approval. Every smile, compliment, and nod of agreement was a small dose of validation, a way to feel seen, safe, and accepted. You learned early that if you acted a certain way, people liked you more. If you hid your truth, you were easier to be around. You adapted, you conformed, and you learned to survive by being who others wanted you to be. But when awakening begins, that illusion burns. You start realizing how much of your life was spent performing, adjusting your voice, softening your truth, and disguising your power just to be liked. You recognize that most friendships weren't built on connection, but on mutual insecurity. People bonded over complaints, over their wounds, over what they hated about the world. They didn't gather to rise, they gathered to numb. And then something shifts. You stop feeding on that energy. You stop needing to be liked. The applause that once fueled you now feels hollow. The approval that once comforted you now feels like a cage. You begin to see that validation is the currency of the unconscious. It keeps people enslaved to the opinions of others, and you're no longer for sale. When you no longer chase validation, people feel it instantly. Your energy becomes grounded, still unbothered. You don't chase texts, force conversations, or beg for inclusion. You don't shrink yourself to be accepted. You don't explain your boundaries or justify your silence. You simply exist, and that alone unsettles those who thrive on external recognition. Because your indifference exposes their dependency. They need attention to feel alive. They need chaos to feel connected. They measure their worth by how many people approve of them. But the awakened have discovered a different source, internal validation, the quiet knowing that comes from alignment. You no longer look outward for proof that you matter. You know you do. That knowing is dangerous in a world built on insecurity. The system thrives on people chasing approval, buying what's trending, posting for validation, following crowds to feel belonging. When you detach from that game, you stop being predictable. You stop being controlled. Your peace threatens the programming. The world doesn't understand this kind of strength. When you're not seeking validation, you're labeled arrogant, selfish, or aloof. But this isn't arrogance, it's freedom. It's the freedom that comes from realizing that not everyone is meant to understand you, and that's okay. It's understanding that peace is worth more than popularity. The awakened become selective, not out of pride, but out of protection. You realize that energy is currency, and not everyone deserves a share of yours. You stop giving pieces of yourself to people who only appreciate your mask. You stop performing for those who clap for your illusion, but ignore your truth. And yes, this shift is lonely at first. The silence feels heavy. The space around you feels empty. But slowly, that silence becomes sacred. You start feeling at peace in your own presence. You no longer crave noise to fill the void because the void becomes your teacher. It shows you who you are when no one is watching. You start enjoying the rare freedom of not needing to explain yourself. You start understanding that being misunderstood is not failure, it's protection. Because anyone who needs you to perform to love you was never meant to walk beside you. The more you grow, the smaller your circle becomes, but the stronger your sense of self. Validation no longer dictates your direction. Praise no longer dictates your purpose. You move from people-pleasing to truth-speaking, from seeking approval to embodying alignment. And that's when most people disappear. They can't connect to someone who doesn't need their validation. They can't bond through insecurity anymore because you've stopped feeding the cycle. Your detachment feels like rejection to them, but in reality, it's revelation. They were never connected to you, only to the version of you that made them comfortable. The awakened walk away not to isolate, but to integrate. They stop chasing validation because they've learned that approval from others is temporary, but approval from your own soul lasts forever. When you no longer chase validation, you stop being a reflection of the world and start becoming a reflection of truth. You stop trying to fit in and start standing firm. You stop trying to be liked and start being real. Because the moment you stop needing validation, you become untouchable. And that's when your power truly begins. 4. Solitude becomes sacred. When you awaken, silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling alive. What once felt like loneliness begins to feel like home. The noise of the world, the constant chatter, the endless opinions, the restless movement starts to feel heavy, almost toxic. You begin to crave space, stillness, and distance. It's not isolation. It's purification. For most people, solitude is punishment. They fear being alone because silence confronts them with themselves. It exposes the noise they've been avoiding inside. But the awakened no longer fear that confrontation. They embrace it. In the quiet, you meet your own truth. You hear the voice beneath the conditioning, the wisdom beneath the mind's noise. And the more you listen, the clearer you become. You start to realize how much of life is just distraction. People running from their thoughts, from their pain, from their emptiness. Parties, gossip, scrolling, constant connection. It's all a desperate attempt to avoid silence. But silence is where awakening lives. That's why the awakened choose solitude. Not because they dislike people, but because they love peace more than performance. The stillness becomes sacred. You start spending hours in reflection, no music, no noise, just breathing, thinking, observing. You feel your energy align. You start seeing how every external voice was shaping your internal reality. And for the first time, you begin to reclaim it. You realize that peace doesn't come from controlling your surroundings. It comes from mastering your inner state. You stop needing company to feel complete. You stop needing validation to feel worthy. You stop needing noise to feel alive. The silence becomes your teacher, and solitude becomes your sanctuary. It's here in solitude that true transformation happens. You shed layers of identity that never belonged to you. You release attachments, habits, and beliefs that kept you chained to the collective unconscious. You learn that solitude isn't the absence of connection. It's the space where connection deepens, where you finally connect with your own soul. And once you taste that, you can never go back. The crowds that once excited you now drain you. The conversations that once entertained you now bore you. The people who once surrounded you now feel distant, not because they changed, but because you have. The awakened start walking alone, not as outcasts, but as guardians of their own energy. You become highly selective about what you allow into your space. You start realizing how precious peace is, how rare it is in a world that glorifies chaos. You stop wasting energy on meaningless interactions and start cultivating inner power through stillness. And yet this solitude isn't bitter. It's not withdrawal. It's expansion. You begin to see life with new eyes, details that others overlook, moments that pass unnoticed. You hear the wind differently. You see light differently. You feel time differently. Because when the external noise fades, the internal world begins to speak. And it's profound. The paradox is this: the more comfortable you become in solitude, the more connected you feel to everything. You start feeling unity with existence itself, the sky, the earth, the breath. You stop needing people to fill the void because the void itself becomes sacred. It's no longer something to escape, it's something to enter. Those who are still asleep will call it loneliness. They'll say you've become distant or detached, but the awakened understand detachment is not disconnection. It's freedom. It's the realization that you can love deeply without clinging, care deeply without losing yourself, and walk alone without feeling incomplete. In solitude, you remember who you are. You remember that you were never meant to drown in the crowd, never meant to lose yourself in noise. You were meant to awaken in stillness, to master peace so completely that chaos cannot touch you. Solitude purifies. It humbles. It strengthens. It transforms. It teaches you to find joy without entertainment, clarity without conversation, and purpose without permission. It strips you down until only truth remains. And once you've touched that stillness, once you've experienced the sacred peace of solitude, you'll never again mistake chaos for company, because the awakened do not run from silence. They walk into it and find themselves waiting there. 5. Awakening redefines love itself. When you awaken, everything changes, even love. Before awakening, love was always about need. You chased it, clung to it, and measured it by the attention you received. You were taught to define yourself through relationships, to validate your existence through connection, and to fear loneliness as if it were a threat. Love was not free. It was a contract, a series of unspoken debts, a cage disguised as comfort. Awakening strips that away. You start seeing love for what it really is, presence, not possession. It becomes something you give freely, without expectation, and something you experience deeply without needing approval. You no longer chase people to feel whole because you already are. You no longer cling to someone out of fear of loss because attachment is no longer your measure of connection. This shift terrifies most people. Those who only know love through dependency, through control, through need. They sense your freedom, and it makes them uncomfortable. They have built their world around attachment, emotional leverage, insecurity, and expectation. Your independence shines a light on their chains. Your calm, unattached love exposes how fragile their constructs are. The awakened no longer compromise their inner peace for affection. They do not tolerate manipulation disguised as love, nor do they settle for conditional connection. They recognize that love is not a transaction. It is not I give, you give, we balance. It is alignment. It is resonance. It is the quiet recognition of another being without expectation, without obligation, without fear. Because love without attachment does not need to be proven. It does not demand validation or possession. You love because it flows naturally, not because it guarantees comfort or control. You understand that the deeper the love, the lighter it feels, not heavier. It frees both the giver and the receiver. And herein lies the challenge of awakening. The world confuses love with dependency. People fear being loved without control. They fear being free within connection. They misinterpret detachment as coldness, independence as rejection, and self-sufficiency as a lack of care. But the awakened know the truth. Love that clings is weak. Love that liberates is strong. You begin to notice how many relationships crumble around you. Not because you lack feeling, but because your standard has shifted. You refuse to be anyone's crutch. You refuse to participate in codependency. You refuse to confuse need with intimacy. This is why the awakened have fewer friends, fewer lovers, fewer companions, because love in its highest form cannot coexist with attachment. Your relationships become sacred. You attract those who understand reciprocity without possession, connection without suffocation. These are the few who can walk beside you without trying to cage your spirit. And in that rarity, you find depth, trust, and resonance that others cannot comprehend. Awakening teaches that real love is a mirror, reflecting both freedom and truth. It challenges every illusion you've ever been told about connection, intimacy, and belonging. You learn that the strongest bonds are not built on fear of loss, jealousy, or need. They are built on alignment of consciousness, respect for individuality, and the courage to be wholly yourself while honoring another fully. The awakened also learn to love themselves first, not selfishly, but fundamentally. Self-love becomes the foundation. Without it, attachment creeps back and unnoticed. With it, love flows effortlessly, naturally, and without compromise. You no longer define your worth by another's attention, and you no longer allow another's fear to shape your heart. And so, awakening redefines love entirely. It transforms it from chains into wings, from dependence into freedom, from seeking into being. You understand that true love does not demand, it does not possess, and it does not manipulate. It simply exists, radiant, patient, and unshakable. Those who fear this kind of love will leave. They cannot handle its quiet power. They cannot handle its freedom. But those who remain, those who resonate with truth, presence, and clarity, become a reflection of the highest connection the awakened can know. Because awakening is not just about seeing truth, mastering energy, or finding solitude. It is about loving in a way the world rarely understands, freely, fully, and without attachment. Awakening changes everything. Your thoughts, your energy, your priorities, and even your relationships. You start seeing the world differently. Surface-level bonds, empty conversations, and shallow connections no longer satisfy you. You no longer chase validation, cling to attachment, or compromise your inner peace to fit in. Instead, you crave truth, presence, and depth, and that inevitably narrows your circle. This is not loneliness. It is purification. It is the quiet space where you meet your own soul and reconnect with life on your terms. The few who remain in your life are not there by accident. They resonate with your frequency. They honor your clarity, respect your boundaries, and elevate your energy. They are your true companions, rare and precious. Being spiritually awake comes with a cost. The world will call you distant, cold, or different. Friends will drift, admirers will misunderstand, and many will fear the power of your presence. But these losses are not failures. They are confirmations that you are walking your path authentically. Every connection that remains is aligned, conscious, and meaningful. The awakened understand this deeply. True connection is not about quantity, it is about quality. It is not about clinging, it is about freedom. It is not about being needed, it is about being understood. And in that understanding, there is a rare kind of peace that the crowd will never know. And subscribe to join the Guru clan and step into a life of clarity, truth, and conscious relationships. Comment below. How has awakening changed your friendships? Share your truth. Your experience might awaken someone else today. Remember, being awake isn't about having many friends. It's about having the right ones, and most importantly, being at peace with yourself.